There's coffee in that nebula.
How you doing, fellas?
Okay.
That's not decaf, is it?
Viennese cinnamon.
Viennese cinnamon. That sounds yummy for today. But no, I'm going to have fruit punch with caffeine.
You see this? You see that? That's my breakfast drink. You know what that is?
It's coffee.
No. That is a peach smoothie.
Ooh.
Protein powder. Oh, my God,
nice.
It's good.
Yum, yum, yum.
I'm having wild strawberry.
How are you doing, John, since the surgery?
I'm doing fine.
How's the weight loss?
Well, I hit my plateau, which they told me would happen. So I'm down to just losing, like a pound. I got to fight for it basically. But I'm over 100. I'm over 110 pounds lost. So
yeah, once you start getting into exercise, it'll help you break through those plateaus.
Yeah.
And you just shake it up. You body confusion, muscle confusion really helps.
You know what I found the most amazing method for weight loss, and I am not kidding.
I heard a giggle. I heard a giggle from Vicky.
Yeah. Vietnam. When I was
an entire fucking war in Southeast Asia, that's how I lost weight.
No, I'm serious. From the time I was in high school, my weight was around 185, 190 when I was playing football. When I went into the army, I was about 200 pounds. Well, when I hit Nam, after I was in my team up on the DMZ, I noticed suddenly, honest to God, my damn jungle fatigues kept trying to fall off me. I had dropped my weight, and I didn't even realize it at the time, down to about 175 pounds. Now, if you saw me, I was 6 foot tall, about 6'2", and I walked around. I looked like a freaking scarecrow. Okay, with those damn, it looked like a good strong breeze would have knocked me down, and that's hard to believe, but I couldn't believe the weight I lost.
That's
just
amazing.
couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, because I went into the army and I really was not heavy. They tried to kick me out of the army because I'm a giant human being. And they called me a fat body when I went in. I'm like, I've got less than 10% body fat on me. What are you talking about? And I was with the first group that they had to use a caliper on, where they pinch you. And they pinched under my arm and they pinched my hip. And they're like, yeah, this guy's within weight. Because according to them, I should weigh like 185 when I was in the army at fucking 6'3". Like, I'd look like I was emaciated from, like, what do they call that? Not the Far East, the Near East. I'd look like I was in one of those starving countries if I had lost any more weight. But goddamn, if I didn't lose more weight while I was in the army, 3,000 plus calorie a day diet in the army, and I was still losing weight.
Well, it was about 69, I think, or 70. Anyway, I was still stateside.
Right.
And the base I was at, and I'm trying to remember where it was. It might have been Dick's, but it doesn't matter. They had some not National Guard. They had some reserve troops in there doing something. Okay.
Right.
And the first sergeant, Gary, I kid you not, I couldn't believe it. It was the most ridiculous thing I ever saw in my life. They had this guy, this master sergeant, reservist, okay, in there. He was so fat. They had 2 web belts hooked together so they could get it around his fat butt. Honest to God. And I was thinking to myself at the time,
was he a supply sergeant?
How can that guy even? Yeah, might have been. How can that guy even go out into public?
Dudes.
Well, I had to. When I was at my top, before I had before I started on the weight loss surgery, we're talking back at 2010. I was 500 pounds. And I was wearing like 70 pants, and I had a belt made, and they had to like put 2. It's for cosplay, with the pouches and everything, and they had to like put 2 because the cow wasn't big enough, so they had to attach 2 together with a with a piece, and so but now it like goes around like almost twice.
That's amazing, dude.
So
yeah, I was right there with you. I got up as high as 650, man. Yeah. And I got to tell you, depression and PTSD is a bitch.
Well, I'm still trying to find pants that fit right now, so.
Well, I'm just proud of you, man. I'm very proud of you. By the way, this morning we got Zach's is a YouTube member that popped up on our little feed this morning. Then, of course, Penny was the first person in the house. She goes, Zach's, boom, baby. Yeah, there you go. Let's get Martine. There's Tim.
Let's get Martine. Wow.
D-Bud Martin. Let's see. Oh, Fishbelly is here. Good morning, guys. Love of my life is here, Anima. She had no time to meet with us this morning before the show. Don is upset that you didn't show up, Anima. Our good limey friend, Glenn Fleming. I think he enjoyed my little post yesterday, along with a few of my other limey friends.
I think you skipped Fish Belly.
No, you mentioned.
No, I didn't. I was going to get. I said it. So anyway, Glenn and a few of my limey friends loved my post on Saturday where I said, really, when you look at it, the Declaration of Independence is the single greatest Dear John letter ever written.
Yeah.
So, good morning, Glenn. Good morning, Tim. Fishbelly, good to see you, man. Let's see. W. Leakey is here. Salam.
Yeah. Salam alaikum, my friend.
Hey, speaking of the Brits, speaking of the Brits, I started to, and I got about 3/4 of the way through, and then I went to bed, and I haven't watched the rest of it yet. But I've seen it before. But The Patriot with Mel Gibson. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Now, being a history geek like I am, everybody calls it the Revolutionary War, and it certainly was. But it was also a civil war.
Yeah. Well, this is something, Don, you and I've talked about before, because it's like they flipped the names in a way that's weird. Because technically, the Revolutionary War was a civil war, and the Civil War was actually a revolutionary war. Because it wasn't one part of the government trying to take over the other one. It was one trying to secede from the other.
Right.
Separate.
Right. And part of that movie, The Patriot, and they got a little heavy-handed with it. But hey, I understand because
with the deaths of the sons, it's like,
yeah,
come on.
well,
man.
no, but the brutality of it, okay, the brutality of killing civilians, and I mean, you can even see by extension some of that happened in Vietnam, like with My Lai, where the military forces are traveling through an area, they're being ambushed, booby traps, all kinds of terrible things, and then they end up taking it out on the civilians there. Well, the Brits, in fact, did do that. In actual history, Bannister Tarleton, okay, who the villain in The Patriot is modeled after, okay, they were some brutal son of a bitches, guys trying to surrender, and they just cut them down. And when that happens, something like that happens a couple of times, paybacks are a son of a bitch, and that's how these things get out of hand. Do you agree with that, Gary?
Yeah, I do. There was a lot of heavy, and the thing that really bugged me about the film, I got to be honest, was the person it's based on. They should have just done his story.
Yeah, the Swamp Fox.
If they'd just done that story, I probably wouldn't have had as many beefs with that film as I did. I thought the murdering of his kids, it's like one son being murdered was enough to fuel fucking revenge. But they killed 3 of his kids in that movie, man, brutally murdering these guys, and it's like, including Heath Ledger, in the film, it's like, oh my God, at what point do you feel like you went, that bridge too far with killing the sons?
Well, see, the thing is, that could have, at that point, you lose 3 of your sons, that could actually shut you down.
Exactly. Psychologically, it's like, what am I fighting for? But I see Jacob has dropped in. Good morning, Jacob. It's been a while. Jacob. Hope you're doing okay. And oh shit, what was it, Don? I was thinking of, but getting into today's show. Look, I am not cynical. I am not. I can appear cynical at times, but the minute I get into a room with a cynic, you will tell that we are not the same animal.
No, he's just a close approximation of a cynic.
It's like I appear cynical, and I'm just not. I'm very proactive and positive, but this just look. We had something happen with a where we saw clear corruption with the FBI. It's clear there's corruption there with the FBI. We have them going like gangbusters. The DOJ and the FBI going after a former president, while we have a sitting president who has a son who has clearly committed felonies. And there's even, because anybody who didn't see Hawthorne's breaking down of that FBI guy, I mean, he just ripped them apart. How these people still have jobs, this is the thing that freaks me out and why I'm not pro-Republican. Because the Republicans have sat and allowed all this shit to happen. And
Gary, I gotta drop out and come back in.
Okay. And it just freaks me out how bad things are right now, and it's really bad. And it's the news, the way it's given to us, and people don't understand. This is the whole wag the dog thing. We found out that who was it? Wall Street Journal had the information on Sunday about the implosion of that sub, and we're told not to release the story because the Navy knew on Friday. The Navy knew on Friday that sub had imploded because they've got the entire region mic'd with just, I mean, they know everything that's going on in those waters, and especially around Newfoundland.
Yeah.
And they knew it imploded. They heard it implode, and they know what an implosion sounds like. And that information made its way to the Wall Street Journal on Sunday, and they were going to release the story. And then they had received a phone call from someone telling them not to release it because of the what's his name, Biden's son story.
Hunter.
They wanted it to be released after, which is again part of the whole wag the dog thing, where they want to control how news is put out in order to shut down narratives.
Reed's right. The UK heard it too. They've got.
Oh my God, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, the UK heard it too. They've got the ocean so wired that they could hear a dolphin fart. So I'm like, I'm like, how did you not hear that? And then it comes out that yes, they heard it. You know, they knew right away that that's what happened, and they didn't come forward.
And I don't know. I'm reminded of that line in Batman. What kind of world do we live in? This town needs an enema, because they controlled the flow of the news. Our current sitting president did that.
Yeah.
And that the media was complicit with him is disgusting.
Well, you can go all the way back to the Obama administration. They actually deliberately and on the surface, everybody saw it, persecuted reporters that were, they felt, being too intrusive. Too many, questions were being asked that were inconvenient. So what did they do? They surveilled them. They listened to their phone calls. They listened to their cell calls, and it came out. Everybody knew it. And at that time, my God, even the IRS, and this was public knowledge across the board, targeting conservative groups. Okay. Yep. And what happened? Who did anything about it? Who answered for it? Nobody.
Well,
so you expect anything different now? I mean, we
expect the Republicans to
one of the most corrupt, outside of Richard Nixon, one of the most corrupt criminal administrations in the history of this country. And what are the Republicans doing, for God's sake? What are the good Democrats doing? Not a damn thing. So,
I get on to people when they attack all Democrats. I'm like, no. I have a lot of friends who are Democrats, and technically, I'm still consider myself an old school Democrat, but I tend to vote conservative because that's where everything has gone in this country. It's moved so far to the left that I can't vote for most of them.
They've moved the Overton window.
Yeah, the Overton window. So, by the way, good morning, Dead Men Walking, Reed by Nature, and Monkey Jibbus is here. Reed says, hints why MSM targets social media. It pokes holes in their stranglehold on the info. Monkey says, what questions were a problem? What is that bulge in Michelle's dress? Oh, my God. And good morning to you, Dead Men Walking. Good morning to everybody. In 78, Fishbelly says, they would have heard it. Today, they were likely listening to their conversations. I don't doubt that for a second. But here's the thing, is that this is what it's leading into. I'm always, God, I'm not cynical. I swear to God, guys, I am not. But
I'll save you. I'll save you, dude, because
right, go ahead.
I'm very cynical.
Okay. Newsweek, which is a lefty magazine. It has been since at least the late 70s with Carter. UFO claims demand skepticism and investigation. One story, it's an opinion piece over at Newsweek. Then they have another article at Newsweek, U.S. GOP congressman suggests UFOs may be ancient civilization. Just all these little stories. Marco Rubio, what a dork. I fucking hate that guy. What a dickhead. Anyway, Rubio claims top U.S. officials coming forward with UFO claims. These are real stories that are coming out, and Newsweek is fucking covering them, okay? And I see that, and immediately I start being skeptical of what's going on here. We get this whistleblower, then more whistleblowers come forward. Allegations last week that There was recovered vehicles. These are all things that I can't speak for Don, but for guys like me that grew up on this shit, it's like, oh, get all excited about. But then I start to feel the wag the dog thing going on, and I can't help it.
Well,
it's just like, why is this coming out now?
It's like every time, that we heard about a new stealth aircraft when the F-117 came out, that we have the stealth fighter. That's because they were hiding the B-2. And the B-2 came out.
I got
we
stories.
Don't know.
I got stories about the stealth aircraft,
Yeah.
and to show you how this business has been going on. At UFO Magazine, okay, one of our, and I actually did several articles on him. One of the guys that we knew who was an employee of Aerojet Corporation, okay, his name is Lee Graham, and Lee became a major boil on the ass of the U.S. Air Force because, and it's a very long story, I can't go into it now, but he got a burr under his saddle about this secrecy and this lying that was going on continuously, not only from military and intelligence people, but primarily the U.S. Air Force. Now, he had been snowing them under with Freedom of Information Act requests on all kinds of things. Now, he had a secret clearance. His clearance, Lee's clearance, was not top secret, but because of the work he was doing, he was one of the guys working on the DSP spy satellite. Now, do you guys know what the DSP satellite was? I'll tell you. The DSP satellite, we had a series of those satellites in geosynchronous orbit spanning the entire globe. And they had an array of detectors on these satellites that scanned the entire spectrum. And primarily what they were looking for, these DSP-1 satellites, were ICBM launches, among other things. These detectors they had on them were so superb, they could detect a Cessna flying across an area of space. They could detect your barbecue grill, literally, in your backyard, depending upon how they had it tuned. Well, Lee had sent them, one of his requests that he had sent them was a request of if they ever detected what in fact became known as fast walkers. Now, what's a fast walker? Well, that was a code name given to unconventional flying objects that could not be identified. Now, I really, when I began doing some research into this, I really became fascinated by what I found out. For example, NORAD, which, of course, a joint Air Force, government, Canadian thing, where we were scanning the skies 24/7, 365, looking for Soviet, aircraft, Soviet ICBMs, you name it. NORAD, as I discovered, had a computer program where the second they detected something on their scopes, they could take a light pen, tap their screen on whatever this unknown thing was. Via a supercomputer, it would immediately scan the database and be able to come up with whatever that thing was, whether it was a Cessna airplane, an F-16, an F-4, a Soviet MiG, it didn't matter, okay? It could name them all, except for these fast walkers. Now, Lee wanted to find out what the hell was the story because somebody had released a formerly classified report from 1984 with a fast walker account that happened in the skies above New Jersey. And Lee found out about that. Well, after a number of years, they finally decided that Lee Graham was one bridge too far. So this is what the intelligence and Air Force did to that man. I broke the story. I thought it would be a big story, but it was UFOs. It was like when Bill Moore at the 1989 MUFON conference came forward and announced that he had worked hand in glove with the U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations to set up a civilian scientist that literally drove him into a psychiatric hospital. Well, with Lee Graham, he had been trying to get some information on what turned out to be the F-117. So with all this other stuff, somebody decided they had enough of him, and a team of 3 or 4 men went down to Aerojet. One of them was identified as an FBI agent. Another guy was identified, and they were all in civilian clothes, by the way, as an Air Force general. And his name was Michael Kirby, this general. Well, they went down to Aerojet, got a hold of Lee Graham's security administrator. They called Lee into an office. Then they asked his security advisor to leave, which incidentally was patently illegal because Aerojet was a civilian contractor. Granted, they had contracts that they were working on government spy satellites, but needless to say, they wanted to have Graham by himself. Well, the guy left. Now it's just Lee Graham, this FBI agent, this other guy who they called Mickey, this was Michael Kirby, and one other individual. They opened up a briefcase, pulled out a security document, asked Graham to sign it. And what this document said was that Lee Graham, even though he had a security clearance, he did not have a top secret security clearance, but they were going to show him something. And in order to see it, and he basically was setting himself up. In order to see it, he had to sign this document acknowledging that, yes, he was seeing something he was not cleared to see. Talk about leaning into a punch. Well, it was basically senior citizen, the F-117 stealth fighter. Now, incidentally, this was just before it was publicly acknowledged that we had this airplane. But Graham signed the document, was shown that this term, senior citizen, which Lee, by the way, had heard about, had been using, was in fact the F-117. Then these guys turned around and Aerojet was told to fire Lee Graham because he had seen some classified information he wasn't cleared to see. Do you understand what I'm saying? How they set him up to get rid of him because he was inconvenient. Okay. Well, he fought it and he ended up not being let go. But we did a big story on that. Now, talk about the government overstepping its bounds in a case like this. And this is the kind of shit that you're dealing with now with the FBI, the CIA, who have been totally politicized. They are no longer following their charter. These guys are rogue, running amok, and nobody seems to care. Nobody.
Yeah, and it's so bad today that the polls show that the American citizens don't trust the DOJ or the FBI right now.
Nope.
And they've got a PR problem when they start putting out one after another TV shows. And you think they're not involved. They are directly involved with most of the FBI shows that are on TV. Not all of them, but most of them. Anything that's pro-FBI is backed by the FBI. And we are, I think, at a period, because this started after the assassination of John F. Kennedy. The cynicism in this country really began. And his assassination changed how we looked at our country, our government, I should say, our government, not our country. And
well, don't forget the Gulf of Tonkin.
Yeah,
right on the heels of that.
And then, Robert Kennedy himself and Martin Luther King. The 60s was rife with assassinations of people in this country. And I've joked many a time, very darkly, that you have some of the worst shitheels on the planet working for our government. And I said, where are those assassins today? I'm sorry, it is a joke. I'm totally joking. But it's like, they killed some great men. Kennedy, John Kennedy was really a very good president. He had his heart in the right place with a lot of things. And with him and with the 60s ended the Democratic Party, in my opinion. They broke.
He just couldn't keep it in his pants.
That's the problem with a lot of presidents.
Yeah.
You rarely get the single probably most true to his wife president we ever had was Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
No, that's like the one good thing I can think to say.
That's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. That guy was dedicated to his wife.
But Jimmy Carter, he was a horrible president, but
yeah, Roslyn, yeah,
guy,
yeah, he really just was a bad president. I feel bad for him. But you got to feel, because he was trying. He was out there putting in some effort, and he just could not get anything right.
Yeah.
He got peace in the Middle East, right? Peace in the Middle East. Got one leader assassinated from it. Shot in front of all of his people.
Yeah.
Guy ran up and shot him during a military.
President Sadat, yeah.
Yeah, Sadat, man. Menachem Begin, just nothing really became of his presidency, or whatever they call them there in Israel. I forget.
Yeah.
They're not presidents. What are they?
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's just... But we've seen historically this thing, and it's so funny since they made that film with De Niro and Dustin Hoffman, Wag the Dog. Great film if you've never seen it, really is. And it was almost like accidentally a shot at Bill Clinton, because Bill Clinton did the same thing, and tried to cover a situation with
Bosnia, blew up an aspirin factory, baby milk factory.
Yeah,
that was to supposedly take out bin Laden.
And I am, as much as I am not cynical, I am extremely skeptical. I was raised on Scooby-Doo, man. There's no such thing as ghosts and monsters. There's always somebody trying to get something, greedy motherfuckers. And our governments are just populated with greedy motherfuckers. It was in the 1950s, as I recall, Don, is the advent of the term political career began. And I'm sorry, the only person you're out for when you have a career is yourself.
Yep.
I dislike that we don't have term limits. Why we don't have term limits, I don't know. Where have you ever heard of a business where you can give yourself a raise?
Well, Congress does it all the time.
Boom,
Yeah.
baby, right there. They're give themselves a fucking raise. They have that much authority and control over what they're doing. And Ben Franklin was like, here's your liberty. Good luck keeping it.
Yeah.
And he was concerned. He said, after a period of time, our greatest concern in this country is when those that work for this country learn how to abuse the system for their benefit. And our Washington is populated by these cocksuckers.
Well, what was it? I think it was Ben Franklin that said, as soon as people could find out they could vote themselves money, that the system's lost.
I would not be surprised if he said that too, because he was he was so far ahead of his time. And he, in so many statements, he predicted the problems we're having today. And I'm horrified that we have elected officials that we trusted that have sat by and allowed this shit to happen. Everything that's happening with the FBI and DOJ, I'm angry about it. You
can actually, guys, go back to the very beginnings of the 19th century. And I'm talking about 1800 to about 1826, 27. Whenever President Andrew Jackson took the White House, okay, what's one of the first things Jackson did? He basically took all the treaties that the United States government had signed with the Native American peoples, all right, assuring the Native American peoples of their lands, threw them into the trash heap, rounded up these people at bayonet point, and marched them out to what became Oklahoma. You've heard of the Trail of Tears, all right?
Went right through Missouri.
People
right through
and
Missouri, man.
Basically said, fuck you, we're taking your land. If you don't like it, we'll be happy to kill you. And a lot of them they did.
And remember,
that was
our Congress,
Jackson.
though.
That was under that son of a bitch, Andrew Jackson.
But don't forget, Don, our Congress went to fight him and stop him. And he said these words to him. He says, well, you bring who you're going to bring, and I'll bring the army and see who wins this argument.
Yeah, he did. Well, he was an arrogant bastard. Look, he's the reason, Andrew Jackson is the reason that, in my opinion, one of the greatest American heroes at that time there was died at the Alamo. And that was Davy Crockett.
Davy Crockett.
Yep. Okay, Crockett, who had a reputation as an Indian fighter, which he did during the Red Stick War, okay, which was, about the time we were fighting the Brits for the second time, the War of 1812. Once again, Native American allied themselves with the Brits and began raiding the frontier, killing settlers and what have you. Crockett was one of the volunteers that went out to fight them. But he saw those treaties as sacred, okay, and he fought Jackson. Jackson, who, by the way, was a Democrat, used his political party to drive Crockett from Congress. Crockett had been a congressman, and Crockett was defeated. He said, well, the hell with you all. You can go to hell. I'm going to Texas. And he ended up at the Alamo, and that was the end of Davy Crockett.
Well, I have said time and time again that one of the greatest villains in this country's history is Andrew Jackson. Why he's on the $20 bill and why we haven't removed him, I don't know. He was a horrible person. He really was. Yes, he was necessary during that war because, as the song says, he helped drive the British out. But as courageous as he was fucking crazy. And he was not good. He was not a nice person.
Well, he was the guy that said, to the victor belong the spoils. Okay?
Yep.
He was the guy who, I won, I'm the president. Now I'm going to do what the hell I want to do. And if you don't like it, tough shit.
You shouldn't have voted for me.
Yeah.
And he did. And he threw out, just like Don said, he threw out all the treaties. The Republican House said, hey, man, you can't do that. And like I said, his response was, well, you bring who you're going to bring. I'm going to bring the army. Let's see who wins this argument. And he got what he wanted. And because my buddy Shane Moore, you've met Shane, my American Indian buddy. He's been on our show. And Shane has this, he's got a real beef with Teddy. And I said, Teddy said a couple things that are questionable. Well, 3 occasions. And Jackson was actively going against American Indians, actively working against their interests and our own interests with them. And absolutely a villain in American history. As much as he did during the Battle of 1812, well, all the way in 1814, he was a terrible president, a terrible human being. And I don't know why he doesn't make the list for worst presidents in history. He's on mine.
Well,
and it sounds like he's on yours too, Don.
Yeah, if you talk to any of the Native American peoples, all right, that especially live on their own lands, on the reservation, what have you, they will not accept a $20 bill.
Good.
They won't. Okay? I've talked to several of them, and they got a little profane about it. But yeah, they regard him right next to Lucifer himself, okay, as a no good, rotten, dirty son of a bitch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, Monkey, terrible idea about homeless people. It's like you can't even get them to get a job. Are you kidding me? They can't even hold down a job. You're going to train them to be great warriors. It's funny, but it's dumb.
Well, sadly, a lot of those homeless people are veterans, and
it's a small percentage of them, but they are in there. A majority of the people who are homeless, we've been having them since the 80s, and it's the one thing I resent about Ronald Reagan is that during the Reagan administration, they created the 72-hour hold.
Yeah.
And all your mental institutions were pretty much defunded and shut down, and everybody that was in them was thrown to the street. A majority of the people that you see homeless on the street are mentally ill. That's a bulk of them.
Well, it's either mental illness or massive substance abuse.
That too.
Here in LA, okay.
Sometimes mixed.
You can drive, drive downtown, and you would not recognize these areas with the homeless in them as an American city. Okay. You just wouldn't recognize it. It looks like something you'd be seeing in the most abject, poverty-stricken country in the world, Somalia or something. It's that bad.
Or it looks like a refugee camp in Africa with tons
By the way,
of tents and stuff.
Hey, Bri is here. Hey, Bri. Brian is in the audience. How you doing, buddy? He's been having some back problems. I hope he's doing okay. Don't worry about him. Let's see. Nope, nothing new. But Brian was asking if we were talking about Andy Jackson. I'm like, yeah, we were talking about Andy Jackson at SOB. And it's so funny. Like, it's a funny story when that one dude tried to assassinate him and both his pistols misfired. I'm like, how crappy is your day when you go to kill somebody and both your guns don't fire? And then you get beat down by the guy that you tried to shoot with his cane. He just grabs the cane and just beats the shit out of you. True story.
Well, hey, one thing you can't take away from Andy Jackson, as much of a no good, rotten son of a bitch as Jackson was, he had balls.
Oh, he did. They were brass balls. That guy was brazen, which is why he drove the British down. He was balls out, one of the toughest leaders.
Do you know why he hated the Brits so much?
No, I don't.
Would you like to know?
Well, inquiring minds want to know.
During the Revolutionary War, Jackson at the time was just a young kid, about 10, 11 years old. And wherever he was at, okay, his family, his mother, his brothers, Jackson was ordered by a British officer to black his boots, basically shine his boots, okay? And Jackson, even as a kid, was a mouthy little shit and basically told the British officer to stick it up his ass. Well, that enraged the Brit, who pulled his saber and slashed Jackson across the face with it. I don't know if you know it, but Jackson had a scar running down across his cheek.
Yeah.
Well, that
looks like a cheek line, but it's a scar.
Yeah, that was from that British saber. Well, his family were patriots, okay. It ended up that two of his brothers were arrested by the Brits, put on a prison hulk. You know about those, right? Mm-hmm. The prison hulks. Yep. Okay, old, decrepit, ships that could no longer sail. The Brits used them as jails where they would put the patriot prisoners, okay? And then they'd keep them in the hold. Maybe they got fed, maybe they didn't. Maybe they'd get a bucket to relieve themselves or not. But they ended up his brothers died. And then his mother, now I wasn't clear if she ended up on one of those prison hulks too, but she got sick and died. So Jackson had two brothers and his mother who all died because of the British. And this began a burning hatred for the Brits that never subsided his entire life. Well, when the War of 1812 started, okay, Jackson was coming out of Tennessee, ended up, at first he was a colonel, then he was appointed a general officer of volunteers. He then got a regular Army commission, and basically, after the Brits invaded Washington, D.C., burned the White House, scattered the American militia to the four winds, went on to Baltimore, which was a major trading spot where American commerce flowed in and out of, to capture Baltimore, ended up invading Baltimore and attacking Fort McHenry, where the Star-Spangled Banner, the original song, was composed.
A lot of people don't know there were actually two flags involved with that battle. And I got into, it's one of the longest lasting fights with my dad over history, is that he kept saying that he could see the flag. And I said, there's no fucking way he could see that flag. And the song is written as a question. Oh, say, can you see? Because he can't see it. And he's asking, imploring, did it stay? Is it still there? Well, clearly it did, because the fight is continued. And that's why he believes the flag is still there. And I love that with the song, or the poem. It was a song later. And but the thing is, that was a fight that he and I had literally to the last year of his life. He would not acquiesce or agree with me. And I'm like, I don't know why you don't get it, Dad. That there's no way. He was a mile offshore in the morning. There is fog and there is smoke.
Yeah.
How the fuck could he see that fucking flag?
Well,
Yeah.
by the grace of God, McHenry held out. The British invasion force was driven off,
Yep.
by the American army. The commanding British general was shot off his horse, which disheartened the troops, by an American sniper. An American sniper killed the commanding officer of the British invasion force. They pulled back. Then they had an idea. Now, you got to know a little about your history to understand who these Brits were. They were all veteran combat troops from the Peninsular War in Europe. Remember, at that time, the Brits and everybody else were fighting the French under Napoleon Bonaparte. And in that entire war, which raged for almost 15 years or so, before Napoleon was finally defeated, the Peninsular War, which went up through Spain and Portugal, was some of the most brutal combat you can imagine. Now, these were the British troops that a peninsular general by the name of Packingham, who was one of the British generals under Lord Wellington, that was sent over here to subdue those rowdy Americans, decided, well, we'll split the country in two. We'll take our fleet, we'll go around and invade up the Mississippi River. We'll go to the Gulf of Mexico. We'll hit the Mississippi River. We'll take New Orleans, and that'll be that. Well, guess what? Andy Jackson got wind of that. And Jackson said, oh, yeah, bring it on, baby. I want me some British. And he went down. The first thing Jackson did was put all of New Orleans under martial law. Now, the French, that had been a French city. All right. Remember, Napoleon needed money. Napoleon offered this to the Americans under President Thomas Jefferson. We bought the whole kit and caboodle for roughly $15 million at the time. That was an unheard of amount of money. But what we got, in response to that was America all the way practically to the Pacific. So the French didn't like the Americans. Oh, hell, French never liked anybody. That. They never liked anybody.
No way.
But Jackson said, you will help defend this city. All right. He put it under martial law. Then, of all people, Jackson allied himself with Jean Lafitte. Do you know who that was?
Oh, yeah.
A little bit of a pirate.
Just a bit of piracy there. Yeah.
A pirate, for God's sakes. And Lafitte made powder and cannon available to Jackson, which helped win that battle. And then they just waited.
Battle of New Orleans. Yep.
And they shot the ass off those British troops. They shot the ass off them.
What's that line from the song? They ran through the briars. They ran through
the bean.
They ran
through the briars. They
go.
ran through the bushes. They ran so fast that, yeah.
The hounds couldn't catch them.
Yeah.
That's it.
down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. And that is the one contribution Andrew Jackson gave to this country. And it's the only one I give him. That guy was just a terrible president.
When we come back from the break, I got a question about the subject you got scrolling across the bottom today. So
we'll get to that because I want because we've segued and fuck you, Brian. You should have showed up early. You would have heard some UFO talk.
Right, home plate.
With that, let's go ahead and go to our commercial break. We'll be right back after this message. Hi guys, this is Gary from Pop Culture Minefield here on KGRA, and we're leaving for our first break. I hope we survive.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm going to take it for the energy. I'm going to take it for the play. I'm going to take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a Feel the Difference money-back guarantee. Fuel Up for life.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Oh wow, we survived! Welcome back to the commercial break. Now for some more Pop Culture Minefield on KGRA.
We are...
I always want to sprinkle some fairy dust around when I hear you say that.
Oh! Hey, I want to get to some of the chat before we move on. Got some great comments. Tim, our good friend Tim.
Some call me
had a friend
Tim.
who was homeless and pregnant. She had some issues, but that's a long story. When I found out, I helped her find a place to live. And then part 2 of that is she calls me her little brother for what I did for her. Best thing I have ever done or ever will do. Yeah, because I heard in real life, you're pretty much a shitheel, Tim. Now, Tim's a good guy, man. It's really good that you did that.
Yeah.
The homeless people, look, I've dealt with all kinds as a paramedic. So many of our involuntary commit calls were homeless people, street people when I was up in Seattle. And it's rough to deal with them, man. It's rough to deal with. In fact, I had a significant exposure to tuberculosis because we got this guy in there and he was not voluntarily wanting to go to the hospital. And got to take him to Harbor View Hospital in Seattle. And we're on our way we called it the zoo, by the way, Don, that hospital, because that place was nuts. That place was insane. And one of my favorite dick moves is after we drop the call off, we drive around the back of the building to go back out the main exit, and we key our mics as we're going around because it would trigger all the doctors' alarms on their cars.
Oh, wow. Buzzing the tower, as it were.
Yeah, we got called on it. We just kept doing it anyway. Like, what are you going to do to us?
Wow.
Fire us?
Wow.
But anyway, so we had to take this gentleman there, and it was just, I got him talking to me, and I used that technique that I was taught of how to get you open up about yourself with them. They open up with you. And I got him to open up, and I thought, wow, I really achieved something here, and right as my partner opens the back of the wagon to unload him, he turns to me and he says, oh, by the way, I got TB. And coughed at me.
Oh.
And then he coughed on my partner. We had to leave. We had to, got paid, but we had to leave the station and we had to go get tested. Mm-hmm. And we had to come back again in a few weeks to be tested again. I'm like, as he got out of that rig and he's looking back at me with that smug look, that crazy dude, like, you son of a bitch, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem started in the 80s, and Geraldo did that story. It's one of the things Geraldo contributed to is the homeless situation. Yeah, that's right. Geraldo, I'm glad he's off Fox, man. What a dick.
Yeah.
He did that big expose. You remember that shit back in the 80s, Don? That expose he did on mental institutions?
I remember Al Capone's vault, too.
Oh, I remember that one, too. His story led to the shutting down of institutions. And it led to our homeless situation.
Look,
I know a guy. Say, it's got to be 50% of them are mental health issues.
I'd say it's more than that.
I know a guy who knows Geraldo, who worked with Geraldo, and all I can say is I've always thought of Geraldo not as Geraldo, but as Jerry Rivers.
Yeah. There's only one thing I remember about him is that he dragged a soldier to safety once under combat, under fire. And I always liked that about him, but that was early in his career. But Darius Munchausen with the $4 super sticker. I know it's a cup of coffee and a pear. And we salute you, my friend. It's good to see you this morning. And thank you for your $4.
And as much as Geraldo is a big liberal turd, when Geraldo was in the Middle East, Geraldo was packing, but he'll never admit to that.
No, he won't admit to anything he's ever done that sounds anti whatever his politics are. Let's see. I want to get with this one here. This is a good statement. Phrase from the 80s. We need to stop warehousing people in institutions. I remember that phrase.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's get to this one. 70s rock fan Brian has joined us. Brian says, I haven't heard any UFO talk. Perhaps the Predator tried to kill Jackson. To which I responded, that's because you were late, Brian. Get here on time next time. Late to the show, and then you're complaining you don't hear UFO talk. There was UFO talk. Let's speaking of UFOs.
No, actually, Brian, let me give you the real skinny, sweetheart. Okay, here's the skinny. We were talking about how the federal government, okay, that's for all you folks in Rio Lido, the feds are untrustworthy, okay? I know that's tough to hear, but that's the way it is. And how they've turned around and fucked people up, the pooper, okay? Now, we were headed toward the whistleblowers. The whistleblowers are the guys claiming that the government has UFOs hidden in their big fucking warehouses somewhere, okay? Along with the Ark of the Covenant, all right? So, not only do you have the Ark of the Covenant, you also have UFOs. Now, we're going to get there before the end of the show, I think.
Yeah, whether we get full disclosure from the government or not, we're eventually going to get some disclosure. It will not be from the FBI, CIA, or Air Force. But I do believe other branches in the Department of Defense will come forward with more information. And we will find out Jerry Rivers. We will find out what is known to a certain extent, but we're never going to get full information. And this leads me back to the JFK thing, the assassination, because what happened was the Biden administration and the National Archives went through the entire records and they released 99% of the files. And RFK jumps in and goes, why the fuck are they withholding 1%?
Yeah.
There's nothing. And you brought up the fact there's still stuff with Abraham Lincoln that's withheld. It's like, there's no point to this. Everything should be laid out. This isn't a country for this government. This is a country of the people. And that information should be known. It should be taught in schools.
Yeah. Yeah. The question I had for you was, you asked the question yourself earlier, why is all this stuff coming out now with these whistleblowers? And then you were talking about the submersible, how they kept that
There's no such thing as coincidences. I learned that from a cop. My dad was a cop.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as coincidence.
Right. See, that's what I'm saying. Is that why we're getting this? Maybe they're keeping this stuff in their hip pocket and releasing it when they want to take your eyes off
wonder.
it.
This is the problem with it, Joe.
Yeah.
Is you begin to wonder, well, how much of this is bullshit then?
Mm-hmm.
The minute you see them wagging the dog, you're like, well, is this true at all? There has to be some truth in it.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know, and you have to be skeptical of all of it, which is what Don and I were talking at the very beginning. It's like skepticism is necessary. I will never be a cynical douche like Don. It's like, I don't know why I can never go, because like our good friend Mark D'Antonio, I said, when he goes into an investigation, he's already assuming it's not real. I know that. I can read him, that he's already going in. He's not going in open-minded at all, which is against the scientific method. That goes against the scientific. So I poke fun because I love Mark D'Antonio. I love that guy. Just fucking brilliant. But I poke fun at him because he's overly cynical. And but the thing is, cynicism comes from something, and it's usually from overexposure to people's bullshit.
Yeah.
Now,
okay,
this guy here,
I'm going to duck out.
His cynicism comes from being a cop, is what that comes from, because he had to deal with so much bullshit that he became cynical from it. Tell me I'm wrong, Don.
Bailey's answering.
Bailey's agreeing with
Bailey
me.
just answered the question for you. Yeah.
Bailey said,
"Look, I'm going to
that's right, Gary."
I'm going to duck out. I just wanted to ask that question, and I was tired of typing.
Well, I'm glad because you asked this question, Joe. You go ahead and go, man. I don't want to keep you.
No,
See you later, Joe.
It's fine.
This was the question Joe said or stated. The article you tweeted out yesterday was really disturbing. Gary, Biden is claiming national security to keep the JFK files closed indefinitely. And it's not the entire files. It's only that 1%.
Yeah.
But why? And with everybody is dead that would have been involved with that.
Yes.
The governments were toppled that may have been involved. The USSR and Cuba.
Well, except for this one.
The only thing that they could be protecting at this point is our Department of Defense, our CIA, and our FBI.
And maybe LBJ. Because for 60 years, boys and girls, it has been suggested LBJ had more than a passing knowledge of what was happening to Kennedy. Okay.
Yeah,
oh,
LBJ
completely
hated believable
Kennedy.
too. You guys have a good one. I'll see you in a little while.
See you, Joe. Bye, Joe.
So we got some more comments here that I want to go through real quick. Read by nature. There's also a Harvard guy saying they recovered material that was extraterrestrial in origin from a deep sea crash. That's interesting. You got anything on that, Reed? I'd like to read that. And then says, it does feel funny when you see big publications, big lefty publications in particular, start talking about these things. Now, CNN itself isn't like really big in this, but they own that news group that busted the story out on the whistleblower. So again, this is where the skeptical side of me, like, this is really weird.
Look, I'm going to tell you once again, and hopefully I'll be able to, when I finish the paper that I've been working on, I'll be able to show in some detail. But there is something at the heart of this. I am totally, absolutely 1 gazillion% convinced that they are hiding, that they think, and probably with good reason, that if it were to be released, it would literally turn civilization as we know it upside down. It's protected by an SAP, all right, a special access program. It will never be released. I don't give a shit how much you hear about disclosure. Look, I've been in this UFO field for a very long time. I have seen these disclosure people, okay, running around masturbating, just absolutely positive that first it was Obama was going to release it, then Trump was going to release it, then Biden will have to release it. Bullshit, okay? I've been watching this too long. Presidents come and they go, and they are not in on what the big secret is, and that is kept by a very small, probably less than the fingers on your hand number of people that know what it's all about. And I
suspect within the NSA.
Yeah, no one paints a word picture like Don.
A word picture, you got it. But look, man, because anybody that knows me knows I'm very anti-conspiracy, because that's the problem with conspiracies is the number of people involved. It always is. The risk of being found out is too easy, and people don't understand it's really hard to really keep things secret.
Yeah.
We find that out all the time. Look at Snowden, because somebody's out there that has access to information. So in order for a conspiracy to work, there has to be a very small number of people involved, and then those who are risky are killed.
What's the saying? 2 people can keep a secret if one of them is dead.
Yep. So conspiracies are just so rare, but we've seen them, and I know they exist. And I'm just terrified at some of the things that I think are going on within our government. And I think there is a conspiracy. It is, what do they call it? A shadow government. I think that's been going on for a while, since the 40s.
Deep state.
Deep state, man. We've had shit going on in this country, and it started with the formation of the Air Force and the CIA in 47.
Same
That's
week.
when it all started.
You know, back in the 80s, when I was blessed to meet, and then I became very, very close friends with Zacharias Sitchin. I had first encountered Sitchin in a bookstore with his first book that I discovered, I found, I bought, I took home, I read, called The 12th Planet.
Yep.
Okay. Now, what Sitchin was talking about, he was an ancient language linguist. Okay. He learned to read and was able to decipher Sumerian text going back over 6,000 years ago. Now, at that time, in the 70s and the 80s, nobody knew about Göbekli Tepe. Nobody really put 2 and 2 together with the Younger Dryas event. Nobody really looked at the recession of the ice sheets, okay, that held the planet Earth in its icy grip over 12,000 years ago. Nobody talked about any of that. Nobody thought about any of that. But they did see the Sumerians as the first civilization, okay, that seemingly blossomed in its full effect in the plains of Mesopotamia, okay, the first civilization. Well, we know today that's bullshit. They were not the first, but they were the first that we knew about. And they talked about those beings that came down from the sky and presented humanity, not only in Sumeria, but in other places, Egypt and in China. Okay, let's not forget the Chinese. Suddenly, humanity seemed to jump forward. Now, it's always been my question, all right, 6,000 years ago, here's this group of people. They called themselves the black-headed people, the Sumerians, that suddenly popped out of nowhere. They had the arts of government down. They had the arts of astronomy, mathematics, medicine, animal husbandry, okay, civil works. It was seemingly they jumped forward with a goddamn blueprint for civilization. Now, how is that possible? Well, according to them, the Sumerians, it wasn't from them. It was handed to them by a group of beings they called the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, which means those who from heaven to earth came. Well, to you and I, that sounds like aliens. But in recent years, I have seen more and more people talking about the Anunnaki and how that religion, okay, that basically the Sumerians worshipped these people, have connected itself, believe it or not, all the way up to and today including Christianity. Now, are those people, those beings, are they still around? Well, a lot of people think they are, okay, and that they are going to be making a return to planet Earth. Now, if you've been watching this show for any length of time, let's say, for example, the last 4 to 6 months, you may have heard me say that in my experience, all right, that I've been beating around in this field, that my thinking on the whole UFO gestalt has evolved quite a bit. Back in the day, I was convinced it was strictly a nuts and bolts phenomena. But as time went on, and believe me when I tell you today that over the years I have talked and interviewed and discussed with literally thousands of people from all walks of life about this. And as time went along, I began thinking, well, nuts and bolts is one aspect. What else, however, may be there? Well, interdimensional. Beings from another reality, occasionally bleeding their way into our reality, a la the original Skinwalker Ranch. But then it hit me that I was talking to several people that had been researching another possibility. And that possibility was that, 12,000 years ago, 12,000, when the Ice Age ended, the planet was hit with a massive global flood. Gazillions of animals, major fauna, disappeared in an eye blink. Things like short-faced cave bears, things like Smilodon.
You and those goddamn short-faced bears, man.
Yeah. The Smilodon, okay, the saber-toothed cats, the giant ground sloths, woolly mammoths, Columbian mammoths, I mean, you name it. Giant diurnal wolves. They were gone. They had been here for millions of years, and they were gone. What happened?
One of the things,
and God knows how many human beings died in that Holocaust. But
one of the things, Don,
here's what I was getting at. Let me just finish this thought.
I want to ask you though, before you do, because this is a question. Do you think that there was something involved with the drop in oxygen levels? And what caused that? Is that in part of this?
No, that's going back millions
the Cretaceous
of years.
Period.
Yeah.
Right. Millions of years.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just curious.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But something else hit me when I talked to some of these people about the possibility that at that time, 12,000 years ago, there was an advanced human civilization. How advanced? I'm not sure. But this global Holocaust obviously rewrote the planet. All right. It would have rewritten any advanced civilization back to ground zero. But what if these people could see what was coming and they evacuated as much as they could of their culture off the planet until the Holocaust was over and things began to settle down once again? Ergo, the Younger Dryas period.
Connectivity.
But when they came back, they decided for whatever reason to go underground, where probably a lot of them are still today. So you've got a possibility of mix or match. It could have been number one, ET, number two, interdimensional, number three, advanced human, or maybe a bit of all of it together that today basically has evolved into the UAP UFO situation. Look, we know there have been many, many massive reports of underground bases and facilities where these UFOs basically have emanated from. Hell, right off of Santa Monica, down in the Bay. Okay, there is an area down there where UFOs are seen continuously. Alaska, another area where these things are being seen all the time. Siberia, okay, where aerial battles have been observed by, among others, the Russian military. I mean, buddy, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's nowhere. And if you believe what's coming out of Washington, D.C., well, I'll tell you what, sweetheart, I got a bridge to sell you, and it's back in Brooklyn. Some excellent real estate.
Exactly.
Well, that was a rant, by the way.
Jingle bells.
That was a rant, by the way, Gary.
It was a good rant.
Yeah, it's good. Just like there is a flood myth in every society, in every ancient society. There's also myths about the math and science and stuff being handed to people by other beings in every ancient society.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if all these disparate societies across the globe all have the same myth, it's got to come from some kernel of fact.
Yeah. Once again, Kyle is here. Zach's. Good morning, Kyle. Here you go, buddy. This is just for you.
Hey, fuck you, Kyle.
No, Kyle, you can't pay for it in Canadian, but you can pay for it in maple syrup.
Please send pancakes with those two. But a question was asked by Tim, FKH, about disclosure about Kennedy. And I said, look, 99%, the National Archives and the administration have confirmed that 99% will be released. It's the 1% that just is ridiculous. At this point, it should be 100. And again, it's either going to involve LBJ, FBI, CIA, NSA, or DOD as to why they're not doing it. It's either one of those or all of them.
Well, I can, if the thing is, RFK Jr. is not going to get elected.
He won't, because he has a Chappaquiddick of his own. His Chappaquiddick is back in 2015 when he said it's going to come back to haunt him. It really is. When he said that conservative people and corporations should be punished, shut down, and maybe put in jail if they are climate deniers.
Yeah.
It's going to come back to haunt him.
Well, and it's just the fact that if it looks like he's going to get close, those groups that targeted JFK know that he would declassify stuff about his relatives. So they would want to do everything possible to make sure he doesn't get in the White House.
Well, they're going to destroy him with his own words.
Yeah.
He completely screwed up in 2015 by saying that stupid shit.
Besides conservatives, I don't think they're going to support a guy who is pro gun control.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And his voice sounds like it came from a Looney Tunes cartoon.
He can't even fucking talk. It's like constantly breaking. It's like, what happened to him? Did he get chopped in the throat when he was a kid?
Well, at least he's coherent.
Yeah. If speaking was necessary to be president, then we wouldn't have Biden.
the gibberish that he talks,
Yeah.
it's so fucking funny. They went after Trump on that shit. It's like, come on, man. Come on.
Do not discard Fetterman. I tell you. Do not discard Fetterman.
Fetterman, oh my God, that guy is ridiculous. They love throwing up these puppet leaders. It's really weird how they do that. And they really show their cards when they do that shit, when they start throwing these puppet leaders in there. It's ridiculous. But again, I want to point out that according to what we've got through the news, and this is even reliable news, is that 99% of the documents dealing with the JFK assassination are publicly available as of right now.
Yeah.
And that's from the White House. It's just that 1%. And it's that 1%. It's sort of like, remember that back in the 80s, 9 out of 10 doctors, recommend. And it's like, wait a minute.
Smoke Camel cigarettes.
What does that one doctor know that the others don't know? I want to hear from him. Because there's usually something that you really want to know from that guy. Sure, it might end up being a kook, some crazy. Or it could end up being someone going, well, they haven't done proper research. So that's what this falls into. What is with the 1%? Why is this 1%? And how much of that really could that be? It's probably not very much. And it's probably names.
Yep.
And
there's coffee in them there regions of space.
And they don't mind bringing down a president if that president is a Republican. They don't. But if it's a liberal Democrat, they'll hide it. And like Don said, there's a really good chance that LBJ might be part of the reason, that part of that 1%. LBJ, I do believe the CIA was directly involved with the mafia. Because I don't think the mafia would have gotten away with it. Because the mafia and the CIA work together.
Elements of the Cuban refugee community.
Well, and there you go.
Had been contracting with CIA. That's what the whole Bay of Pigs thing was all about.
Yeah, he let those people get killed. He refused to give them support.
They had bought and paid for 2 B-26 World War II surplus bombers that were down in Central America, loaded with bombs, ready to take off.
Yep.
Okay, and JFK stopped them.
And I do think that was wrong on his part, by the way. But what it was is he had a beef with the CIA. That's really what that was. It had to do with his beef with the CIA. And it goes back to another incident because it's very similar to the overthrow of Saddam Hussein that almost happened back in the 90s. And we were supposed to help him. We'd given our word that we were going to help all these insurgents in Iraq to overthrow Saddam. Do you remember this shit, Don?
Shia, by the way.
Yeah.
They were Shia.
And we were going to help them. And then Bill Clinton pulled the plug
No, it wasn't
on
Bill Clinton. It was George Herbert Walker Bush.
I thought it was Clinton that did it. It was one of the first things he did. Was it Herbert? Either way it
that
goes.
Was one of the last things he did was turn his back on the Iraqi people.
Well, it's why he didn't get reelected because the military veterans, or actually not veterans, but those of us that were still in, wouldn't vote for him.
Yeah.
We wouldn't vote for him because we felt betrayed by him, Schwarzkopf, and Colin Powell. We felt that you let them take their armor back? You let them go home after what they fucking did? You're going to let them go back? We should have gone all the way in there and toppled him right then and there. We had the opportunity. The road was open for us. They couldn't stop us. They really, literally could not stop us. We kicked their fucking asses. And leadership said, now we got to be diplomatic. Where are leaders like Tecumseh Sherman, where it's all about defeating the enemy and completely crushing them? And when you're as bad and evil as him.
Pal. We lost that with Harry Truman in Korea. Okay.
It is sad.
That was where we learned to lose wars. We did it in Korea. Then we doubled down in Vietnam. Okay. And let me tell you what, from my standpoint, that's something I can never forgive, nor will I ever forget, ever.
Well, if
I had too many friends end up dead on a fucking battlefield, and then the goddamn Congress of the United States basically cut our throat. Well, fuck you.
We haven't won an engagement except for Grenada. That's it. That's the only one we've won since the Korean War.
Yeah, it's like we proclaimed victory in Iraq and in Afghanistan, but the fact is piss poor leadership and the willingness to do the right thing led to the loss. We
well,
lost.
You saw what Democratic administrations would do, okay, which basically cuts our own throat. Obama did it in Iraq, his arbitrary pullout, and who immediately flowed in there? ISIS.
Yep.
Okay. Who immediately flowed in there? ISIS, our deadliest enemy. And then Biden did it in Afghanistan. Billions of dollars of advanced weaponry.
Yep.
Yeah, you run into this shit all the time with the piss poor leadership. I mean, to speak historically, one of the biggest mistakes we made with Iraq was when we dispersed the military.
Yeah.
The Iraqi military. And what did they do? They went out and joined the insurgency. You won't give us, let us keep our job.
They left munitions by the tons just lying around for any insurgent or terrorist to pick and choose whatever the hell they wanted. And then they started using it on us. Okay. And it was Rumsfeld, that worthless as tits on a boar hog, okay, that said, well, we just didn't have the wherewithal to pick all that up. And you go to the war with what you got, not what you'd want to have, or worse than.
Well, that's how all wars start.
We got it there. We could get it back.
It's a piss poor excuse because every war starts with what you've got. And then you figure it's sort of like World War II. I brought this up the other day when we talked about Audie Murphy, that the rocket-propelled grenade fired from the M1 carbine in Springfield
the rocket grenade
were created during World War II because we needed something. And so necessity is always there, but it's bullshit to use that as an excuse for losing. Because what is it we're taught in the military? To adapt, overcome, improvise.
Adapt, overcome.
And you're always taught that. And so Donald Rumsfeld is a terrible leader. He always has been. I don't like him. I've never liked him. He's another one of those Nixon acolytes, that survived politics for some reason for 50 years. I didn't like any of those sons of bitches. Donald Rumsfeld. I didn't like that other dickhead vice president.
Fucking
Cheney.
rhinos, one and all.
Yep. They're phonies. You're a phony.
Yep.
And how many of those sons of bitches wore a uniform at any point in their career?
That would be none of them.
Yeah, George W. Bush was National Guard, National Guard. That's about it. Bill Clinton was fake smoking pot. Right.
A draft dodger. He was a draft dodger. Don't tell me he was anything else.
At least Herbert Walker Bush served.
Yeah, he got shot down.
Yeah.
And that guy was a Navy aviator.
Yep.
And he got shot down. Was it
He was
once
also
or twice?
I think it was
I can't remember.
twice.
I think he was shut down twice. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't like him as a president.
No.
Here's my statement about him. When he claimed no knowledge of those deals, I said one of two things is going on here. One, you're an inveterate liar and you don't deserve to be president. Because once you are the head of the CIA, you are always embedded with the CIA.
Yeah.
There's no fucking way he didn't know about it.
Unless you're forced out in disgrace.
You were really bad at your job with the CIA, and you're bad at your job, period, and therefore you're too dumb to be president.
Yeah.
So either way it goes, I refuse to vote for him.
I think it should
Well,
be
I
a
voted
rule
for
that
Ross Perot in 90.
I did too. That crazy dude. I loved him. And I love the movie about him, The Patriot. That was also called The Patriot. And what's his name? Crenna. Richard Crenna played him in the movie. Did you ever see that film, Don?
I don't believe I did. No.
Check it out. I think it's a made-for-TV movie. I'm not sure, but it starred Richard Crenna as Ross Perot, and it's a true story of how he helped get hostages out of the Middle East. And he was die-hard American, crazy smart.
He was like the proto-Trump.
Yeah, that dude was something else. But I like the way he talked.
Yep.
Get a finish. Get a finish.
Now look at right here at this chart here.
I couldn't. There's no way on God's earth I could have ever voted for anything with the name Clinton on it.
Nope.
If not for him, for the woman he was married to, I saw her from the get-go as a lying, deceiving, sneaking, backstabbing bitch. Okay. But when it came to George Herbert Walker Bush, I looked at him and this with Vicky and I both talked about this. I saw no fire in his belly. And his Veep, okay, I saw no fire in his belly. And I doubted that Quayle was smart enough to pour piss out of a boot if the instructions were on the goddamn hill. Okay. So that left me with Ross Perot. And if he wouldn't have dropped out and then came back, I think he might have had a hell of a shot at that. But, that was all. Hey, it was set up. The fix was in. I don't know what else to say. The fix was in.
Yeah, everything has become suspicious since then, and I'd like to go back to the old day because I would much rather have hanging chads than to deal with hacking. Because
with hanging chads, we had climate change, global warming at the time, and the polar bears were dying. So,
in 10 years.
Yeah.
And don't forget.
No, it's 10, 20 years.
And don't forget, he created the internet.
Al Gore.
Al Gore.
Al Gore.
The only
what I remember him for
man in Vietnam that had his own private fucking security detail to make sure that he didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Wasn't Jennifer Lawrence the one who invented the internet?
I will never forgive him for fucking up air conditioning in cars.
No.
And he's the one. He single-handedly brought about the end of Freon.
Yeah.
And he said that ozone doesn't repair. It does.
Yeah.
Actually, the science never, ever proves out in anything that he supports. Anything. The science is always going the opposite way.
How many fucking houses does that guy have?
I think he had 6 at one point.
Yeah.
Mansions, by the way. They're not houses.
Yeah.
They're mansions. That cocksucker. He profited off of everything he supported.
Hey, look, if you got money, if you got your own money and you want to buy 6 houses, I think you ought to buy 12. Okay? If you can afford it, I don't begrudge the man that. But if he's using my back to step on to get those houses, then, sweetheart, you can stick it up your ass.
And I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I feel exactly the same way. Well, we are reaching the last 10 minutes of the show. So what are we going to talk about now? Because boy, oh boy. Do we want to go back to the whistleblowers? I'm looking at, because the National Archives.
Yeah, let's go back there for a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about some of these allegations, if you will.
Because here's the article, Don.
Yeah. I know. First, let's talk about this. Does it seem plausible to you guys that our secret government, okay, and primarily now I'm talking about military government contractors like the aviation, space corporations that have a dozen or more recovered suspected off-world technology in their warehouses working on them. Does that strike you as real? Because that's one of the things that Grush was alleging that he was told by his very own insiders. Gary, what do you think?
Oh, it sounds like utter rubbish.
You don't buy it?
No.
All right, not a dozen. How about 5 or 4?
No, I don't believe any of them. I don't believe that.
Well, I do.
Okay.
I do. I think it is conceivable. I believe that we have them not because their technology is faulty, but because they have been shot down. And hey, you got to remember, we would be covering that action in real time, okay, through our technology, spy satellites, etc. I mean, look, if the majority of American people knew the technology that we have available to us, it would probably shock them to the bottoms of their feet. Now, have there been crashes? Absolutely. And Roswell, and I don't care how many times people try to diss that incident, something extraordinary happened there. Now, in that case, in Roswell, I believe that craft was shot down, not knocked down because of our radar and all these other things that we've heard about. I think the shoot down is a result of interplanetary warfare that's taking place right now in near-Earth space. One of the perps or perpetrators, I believe, okay, and I'm going to sound like I'm going out on a limb here, but I am convinced through my own research for 20 years that there is at least one or more extraterrestrial bases on the moon, not to mention down here on Earth. And I think there's a ongoing conflict that you and I, as human beings, are at the center of this dispute. Now, if there are shoot downs, something has to happen to those objects. And I think not only us, but the Russians, the Chinese, the Brits, okay, will bust our tails to get out there and bring this crap back. All right. So I don't see any problem with the idea that we have recovered alien craft that we've been working on for at least 70 years.
Yeah.
Now I do believe
Okay.
that. And so if you're saying what you're saying, I do believe that because I can't remember the guy's name. He's dead now. That made the claims of that underground battle. What were your thoughts on that? I think it was in New Mexico.
Benowitz, Paul Benowitz.
Benowitz.
Yeah.
That I don't know. That was basically part and parcel of the disinformation that Benowitz. That's subject for a whole new show.
Yeah.
Matter of fact,
Okay.
we could do a couple of shows on that. The disinformation. It was an official Air Force program to basically drive this guy batty. All right. Drive him batty. And they did. He ended up in a psychiatric hospital. He was targeted by the military of this government because he was being inconvenient. All right. Now think about it.
You're still talking about Benowitz, right?
Paul Benowitz. I
Yeah.
certainly am. That means that if you, Gary, became inconvenient in their eyes, they could go after you. Now that's blatantly illegal, but nobody has done shit about that.
Well, here's the thing,
Nothing.
though. It was made not illegal in 1947 that they could kill anyone
Yeah.
or act against them. They wrote that into their fucking laws.
If national security was raised as an issue. Now,
Well,
this is one of the things that pisses me off greatly when
You know what grinds
people,
my gears?
Lou Elizondo,
Oh, yeah.
the great white knight for the last couple of years, he's been touted as the great white knight, but he doesn't want to look at any of that stuff. Now, I talked to the guy. The guy knows who I am. He knows my background. I think he has an idea of my database, my knowledge of this field. And the man has avoided me like the plague. And all this other horse shit that they're fiddling around with, they haven't got to the very heart of what this is all about. Personally, I think the guy is scared to death of the implications.
He's scared of you, Don. You scare people. But to go back to what you were saying about the...
I don't mean to. I don't mean to.
To go back to what you were saying about the extraterrestrial war. That's been happening on this planet for thousands of years. Look at the Indian Holy Text. There's descriptions of extraterrestrial combat going on in these texts.
30,000 years ago. 30,000 years ago, John.
Yep. And so, I mean, if we've got these ancient texts telling us this stuff, and we can still see it going on today, there's got to be something there. It's not just.
There is.
Yeah.
And not only that, John. Not only that, but here's another great bugaboo that scares the shit out of the powers that be. Long before Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there were nuclear weapons, that were deployed and used on this planet.
Yep.
And there's evidence of it even today where these devices were detonated. Now, that became public knowledge, okay? And the evidence was presented of, this area was nuked, and that area there. Hell, there's a place in India today, in the subcontinent of India, and I can't offhand, I don't recall the name of the area, where it's still extremely radioactive after multiple thousands and thousands of years after the event, that even today, if you go up there, you can be irradiated. That's something they wouldn't want anybody to know about.
It's the Kollam district in Kerala.
Okay.
Now they're blaming it on the Mosite sands that are high in thorium, but that much thorium had to get there because thorium isn't a common mineral, and there had to be some reason for thorium to be there, and thorium can be used in the manufacture of atomic weapons.
Okay, there you go.
Interesting.
In fact, one of the lines of technology they're following is a thorium reactor for fusion reaction.
Yeah, because it's cleaner.
Yeah,
That's why we need our physicist here, our own personal in-house physicist.
This is the thing that frustrates, because there's a documentary on this that was on Netflix. It's a really good documentary. Netflix does put out some good stuff about the fact that thorium is clean nuclear energy, and yet why do we keep producing the kind that can be weaponized? That's dangerous.
We need it to weaponize it. That's why.
That is why. And it's a very good documentary.
Thorium can be weaponized too. The only problem with thorium is it stays in the environment longer. It's cleaner. It's less total radioactivity, but it's longer lasting. That's why there's thorium. That's why there's the thorium sands in India.
But they state that it's safer, though.
Guys, look, let's just cut it down to the nubbin. Here's the deal. We are all massively being subjected to and suffering from the mushroom factor.
Yeah.
It's intentionally keeping us in the dark, feeding us massive amounts of bullshit.
Yep. That's the way the government works.
And it leads us back to where we started the show today, which is the wag the dog thing that always feels like it's going on, and probably really is going on. That we have a current administration that is absolutely corrupt and dishonest. We know
not to mention lying 24/7.
Well, anybody who saw Hawthorne's breakdown of the FBI in the hearing this week saw the grilling that he gave them is amazing. He's like, so what you're saying is misdemeanors over here are more important than the felonies that were committed here, and you're just ignoring those. They just went away. And then he tried to say at one point, well, that information, and then one of the senators goes, well, I read that, and the FBI gets mud on his face immediately going, oh, I guess I better admit, yeah, that does exist. Yeah,
Come on, Gary. It's not like they found cocaine at the White House or anything.
Jesus Christ. I swear to God. I swear to God. This right now, I'm terrified of being an American because of what's going on. I fear for us. So before we go, I do want to read these. I don't recommend sticking things up your ass, but no judgment here. That was through your reference of sticking up his ass. Then, of course, we got Tim here. It says, Pop Culture Minefield, Richard Crenna from Our Miss Brooks. Richard Crenna, as my dad said this, my dad actually said this, Richard Crenna was TV's or the poor man's Gregory Peck. Yeah, and I'm like, that's a great statement because he really is. He is like just Gregory Peck level acting, but he never was in anything really big.
He was great in the Sand Pebbles, Bubba.
Yeah.
Yes. Sand Pebbles is absolutely one of the films I'm going to be doing on Monday. You going to join me for that one, Don?
I have to rewatch it. I think I have it. I'm pretty sure I have it.
I have it.
We've got it.
I'll
I'll
make sure you can get it.
Chanel's saying we've got a wrap, so we've
I
got
know.
a
That's
wrap.
what I was trying to do. I was actually in the middle of wrapping up. Thanks, John. Captain Obvious. I knew Don was in Korea too.
Yeah.
You know that's coming the minute you bring up the Korean War, Don. You know it's coming. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I especially Rambo? No, he was. Richard Crenna is so much better than Rambo. That's all I got to say. Yeah. But anyway, I want to thank you. He was in Leviathan too, by the way. It's another low budget film, but Crenna was great in it. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank KGRA for listening in. I hope everybody is enjoying the show. We will be, hopefully, within the next month, I'm going to get a phone number for call-ins. And either I or Martin will be in charge of that. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I really don't want to scare anybody, Gary. I really don't.
Oh, really? Then why do you sound like this?
Those sons of bitches.
And by the way, Robert Loggia played the part of him in a movie here.
Get out of the wire to every squadron around the world. Tell them how to bring those sons of bitches down.
We're 2 minutes over. So
it's 1:56 and we are out of here, guys.